I tell you what, for an old chook, Polly, you're still looking fucking good. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 70th birthday celebrations of Polly Petrie. Polly, where's Rabina? Polly, where's Rabina? She's gone fucking deaf. I told her, you know, she's got that spot out there on the street and she's been doing it for years, and I said to her, if you keep that up, you'll go deaf.
Oh, yes.
But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm going to start proceedings off with a few words about Polly, and she'll fill you in on Rabina's 50th birthday later on. Rabina is coming over from New Zealand for this tonight. Polly Craig Petrie. Shut up. This is my fucking show at the moment.
Andrew! Where's Andrew?
Well, Andrew Craig Polly was born 70 years ago in Scotland and came to Australia as a 10-pound tom with her family. Now, you'll all remember the famous movie, The Sound of Music. Anybody seen it? Anyway, one of my favourite scenes in that is the nuns all in the courtyard singing How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria. Well, for 51 fucking years I've been trying to solve a problem like Polly. I don't think I can ever remember calling her Craig. She's always been Polly, and she always will be Polly. We met at the Argyle Tavern in the Rocks, down in the Rocks area. It was a restaurant, and I'd say it'd be 51 years ago. Polly was waiting on tables there, and they all had different uniforms on and all this type of thing. And the place was owned by Sam McMahon, who was Billy McMahon, the current Prime Minister. It was his brother. And to be honest, he was a bastard of a man, wasn't he, Polly? A bastard of a man. And he was an alcoholic. I remember one night there, I used to go in there at 12 o'clock at night to pick up my first boyfriend. I've had a few since then. But my first boyfriend, Dennis, Gilda. Yeah, Gilda Gould. And they called me the Midnight Cowboy because I used to go in there at 12 o'clock every night. And that's how I got to know Polly, through that. Polly in her early days did a lot of ballroom dancing, and I think she probably won a few competitions around the place and all that, but this was the grounding for later on, for her being a male dancer in some of the biggest establishments around. The person that gave Polly her first job on Oxford Street was who, Polly? Zena Brown. Tommy Brown. Tommy owned, in conjunction with Owen Miller, he owned Capriccios. And there'd be a few of you here that remember Capriccios. I think we've only got one here tonight from Lay Girls, and we've got Laura Banning up the back up there. Give Laura a big hand. It's great to see her. Great to see her. Anyhow, Zena gave her a job there, and it wasn't on stage, it was picking up glasses. Well, I think Polly broke too many bloody glasses, and she didn't last too long doing that. But next, you know, you couldn't keep her off the stage. You couldn't keep her off the stage. She was destined for the stage. And Ross Coleman was holding auditions for his show, which I think was the Barry White show. Polly auditioned for it, and of course she got the job. And that was the start of everything that followed. You couldn't get her off the stage after that. Now, Polly also danced with some of the top people in the world, like Danny LaRue. Danny LaRue is known all over the world. Polly danced in his shows. She also danced with Carol Burnett at the Sydney Opera House. the famous Simona Monique's Playgirls, and she also toured with Disney on Parade. That was a great achievement. And of course, not to forget Fantasy Island, where she got terribly out of it out there with Lorraine Campbell Craig, and we won't talk about that. Anyway, Fantasy Island, and of course, Lay Girls. Not to forget, also, Polly was a male model in her young days. And I can tell you, she was a bit of a dish. As a matter of fact, I remember there was a thing going around about her there at Capricio's. And she wasn't in drag, she was, just off stage on the show and that type of thing, as a male dentist. And the famous ballet dancer, Rudolph Nureyev, tried to pick Polly up. Polly looked at him and she said, "Go away, you smell." Is that right, Polly? That's right, yeah. Now we go to the 80s and 90s. Now we know what a bad period that was for us gay people. That was the AIDS epidemic. Well, back in those days, the AIDS charities were all doing functions around the place to collect money. And I was vice president at the time of the Luncheon Club, and we used to have a picnic concert with a big stage in Green Park every World AIDS Day, which was the 1st of December, so it's coming up again soon. Anyway, I remember this day, I was in charge of looking after the drag queens, and they all got changed in the Rotunda, which was the restaurant in the middle of Green Park, which is still there. And I had a list there, and I looked down and I thought, oh God, Polly's on next. Anyway, I think it was Maxie Shields that was on stage. Anyhow, I said, "Paul, you're on next up." "Yeah, all right now, yeah, okay, yeah." So up she comes, and I turned around and looked at her like this, and fair dinkum, you've never seen anything like it. She had eyelashes that came out here. They were like fucking paintbrushes. So she said to me, I said, "You're on next, Paul." She said, "Laureen." She called me Laureen. She christened me Laureen. We used to go around to her place many years ago of a Sunday and smoke dope. Anyhow, she looked at me and she said, "Laureen," she said, "whoever thought I'd end up in a fucking frog?" And of course here she is now, and she's still in a bloody frog. The Albury Hotel became one of Oxford Street's most popular venues. It opened in 1980, and Capricio's burnt down in 82. Around 1991, Polly's Follies started. And when you go back to the Albury days, there was no stage. They performed on the bar and behind the bar, and it was all drag, and the Albury was packed every Sunday for Polly's Follies. You couldn't get in, they were out on the bloody footpath and everything. And many current drag queens started their career off there. And I think we've got one here tonight too, that's going to perform for you. Miss 3D, she was one of the stars there. So we've got to look forward to 3D tonight. Now the Albury closed in 2001, and Polly took the show to various venues in Oxford Street. I remember the Exchange Hotel was one. But it ended up at Stonewall Hotel and stayed there for many years. And I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, Polly's Follies closed after an incredible 27 years. 27 years. All thanks to her. Now Polly was known internationally also. Only a few years ago it was World Pride in New York City, and lo and behold, you get up this morning And on the front page of the bloody New York, which paper it was, there it was, in drag, Polly Petrie from Australia. So, you know, she was known all over the world. There's also a compassionate side to Polly. We had one of our drag queens suffered badly in the local flood, in the recent floods in Lismore, and there was a benefit on for it on Facebook. Who was one of the first in there to give some money in? Her Majesty, yes. Now, Julie, you'll like this. Last week, we all went to see a movie. There was Julie, Adrian, Polly and myself. I think we went to see that new gay movie, Bros. It wasn't a bad movie. But of course, after the movie, we had to have a drink, didn't we? Yes. So we go into the local pub, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden my mind says to me, listen, you've been going to ask Polly for years now and never got around to it, what the meaning is of a Hoya. A-H-O-Y-A. So I said to her, Polly, what's the meaning of a Hoya? Oh, I don't know, love, I made it up. And I said, well, it sounds like a lower, you know, and she always had a thing about Hawaii. She gets over there as often as she can. Anyway, we left there and I got home and I'm sitting there in the relaxing chair, you know, the recliner for old people. And something said to me, you still haven't found out what a Hoya means. I know what I'll do. I'll ask my friend, Mr. Google. I talk to Mr. Google quite regularly. Anyway, I said, Mr. Google, there's a word, a Hoya, A-H-O-Y-A. Can you please tell me what it means? And it wasn't long when Mr. Google came back to me and he said, a Hoya means Arsehole of the Year Award. Arsehole of the Year Award. And I thought to myself, my jaw dropped, and I looked at it and I said to myself, God, shit. Polly's been saying this to people for bloody years and she hasn't got a clue what it means. So ladies and gentlemen, I won't bore you any longer, there's a big show coming up, but I want you to do one thing. On the count of 3, I want you all to charge your glasses to Polly and say, Ahoya! 1, 2, 3, ahoy!